Welcome to the journey of CyberLogic, a guide to Final Fantasy XI, Episode 10, Chains of Promathia. We were introduced to Chains of Promathia in Episode 9, our last episode, as we climbed Dilkfut's tower. In this episode, we will take on the first two initial chapters of the Chains of Promathia expansion, and while going through these two chapters, you're normally going to level your main character from level 40 or so, all the way up to level 50 to 55. All three of the zones that these chapters will take you to offer excellent experience potential. Additionally, in two of the zones, you actually need to kill and farm many of the mobs in order to get the items you need to progress through the objective, so therefore it works out that you're actually killing things on your way through these zones as opposed to just avoiding the mobs, and you should see the levels come quite quickly. Now the first thing we're going to want to do to proceed in the Chains of Promathia expansion, after receiving the initial cutscene in Lower Dilkfut Tower, is to go to Upper Juno. As soon as you zone into this zone, you will immediately be shown another cutscene showing you that you need to go and speak to Monborough that is at G10 inside of Upper Juno. Go to him and speak with him and you will get another cutscene which will then bring you on to Chapter 1-2. Now in Chapter 1-2 you want to head to Rulud Gardens and speak with Fermosil at G6. This cutscene is all that's involved in Chapter 1-2. This cutscene is all that's involved in Chapter 1-2, and upon completion of this cutscene, you will now have gained access to all three of the Promyvions that are scattered throughout Vana'diel. Now the entrances to these new zones should be rather familiar to you, as they are all at the entrances to the Crag of Hala, Mia, and Dem. Now which one of these new zones you head to first doesn't really matter, as you need to take out the bosses at the top of all three of them. I normally will start at the one that is closest to my home nation, so since we started in Sandoria, we're going to go to Hala first, and then Dem, since we also have easy access to Dem, and then we'll worry about getting to the other side of the world and getting to the Crag of Mia, which if you started at Bastuk or Sandoria is probably a place you have not visited yet. Now the point of the Promyvion zones is to progress through the 4 levels of the zone using these memory receptacles that you see in front of me here. You want to travel throughout each of the floors and look for these memory receptacles and defeat them wherever you find them. Once you defeat these memory receptacles, it is possible that a portal to the next floor will appear below you. If so, make sure you take it immediately and progress to the next floor. If you do not see the portal appear to the next floor upon defeat of the memory receptacle, you then went ahead and search the rest of the floor that you're on. There's going to be another memory receptacle, or even a few more on that floor, that you will need to defeat, each with their own opportunity to take you on to that next floor. Trust selection can be an important part of getting you up these floors quickly and safely. I always recommend using Velanariel here at this early stage of the game, especially during these promies, because his Uriel blade that he almost opens all fights with will allow him to get hate on both the memory receptacle and all the surrounding adds, making your life much easier. I find that Line is exceptional at both dealing damage and mitigating damage with her shadows. Now Semi, the Mythra Ranger, can do a tremendous amount of damage and stay safe while they're at range. Therefore I recommend using them in your 3rd slot, and for the 4th and final slot, you can either use Millie if you don't have access to Yoran Oran, or if you do have access to Yoran Oran, obviously that's who I would suggest you should be using. Now the thing you want to watch for as you're climbing up these floors is there are certain areas of all of these Promyvion zones that actually have much higher level mobs than the rest of the zone. They will be impossible for you to defeat at this level at this time, therefore make sure that you're always checking the mobs as you're going around the zone, and as long as they're very tough or less, you should be able to easily take them on with this party setup. However, if they're incredibly tough or higher, you want to make sure that you avoid them at all cost. Now once you reach the 4th and final floor of each of these Promyvion zones, you will see a spire zone on that top floor that you'll be able to zone to just like this. Once you enter this spire of Hala, Dem, and Mia, you'll be ready to take on the final bosses of these zones. Now let's go ahead and talk about those 3 bosses briefly so you know what to expect during these 3 boss fights. First off, as long as you're level 40 plus, you really shouldn't have many issues with them at all as long as you're using the trust that I've recommended. Let's first talk about the boss that you'll go against in the Spire of Hala, who is the Wrecker. Now the Wrecker's primary mechanic is to absorb the buffs of the tank that they are currently fighting. Therefore, it's a good idea not to overly buff the tank, as many of those buffs will get absorbed. Now since you're using trust, you can't really control which buffs they give him, but you can control how many buff trusts you're using. That is why I suggest you don't use things like Joachim on Bard for this, as that's just going to make the Wrecker more powerful as those buffs are absorbed. You also may want to bring Holy Waters during this fight to save the magic points of your mage and be able to get Curse off of you quite easily. You can also use Poison Potions if you're finding that sleep is problematic, but most of the time your Trust will cure you fairly quickly, making that not necessary. Next, let's move on to the Spire of Dem and the fight against the Generator. Now here, the main mechanic is at 50% hit points, they're going to spawn 6 baby ads. They are fairly weak and won't do much damage, therefore I suggest you just ignore them. But note, they can be slept or even killed, but it's really just going to slow down your fight in general. Go ahead and focus all your damage on that boss, and it should be over before you know it. Lastly, let's move to the Spire of Mia, where we'll be going against the Delver. Now the main thing you want to watch for on the Delver is Impalement. It's going to do massive damage to the tank, but normally not enough to kill them. But it's also going to reset hate, so that you're going to need to try and maintain a good level of hate throughout this fight, so that he doesn't go after your DDs or your mages when this move is used. Other than that, this is a fairly straightforward fight. If you're finding the poison is more than your mages can deal with, go ahead and make sure that you bring antidotes to get that poison off of yourself. Now the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is how you'll get to these Craigs if it's the one that you haven't quite gotten to yet in your adventures. So if you need to try and get to Dem and Holler and you haven't gotten there yet, I suggest using the Unity Warp to Valkyrum Dunes. This will put you within a short mount distance of getting to the Craig of Hala or the Craig of Dem. Make sure you go to Selbina and pick up the home point when you're there, making your life easier to get back to this location. Conversely, if you've not been to Mia before, like in our walkthrough, then what you want to do is you want to use the Unity Warp to the Buburimu Peninsula. Now here, you'll be able to quickly use Mount to get over to the Craig of Mia within about 2 to 3 minutes. However, just like with my previous recommendation, I suggest you head down to Mora first and get the home point warp there so that you can easily get back to this town in the future. One other thing you may want to do when you're in the peninsula is right when your Unity Warp completes, you'll be able to turn around and see a cave right in front of you. Go ahead and head into that cave. Now one other thing I do want to point out is right there at the Unity Warp for Bubu Peninsula, if you simply turn around, you will notice there's a cave right there. Walk into the cave and you will zone into the maze of Shakarimi. Now once you're in this cave, you want to follow the path that will take you a little bit further into the zone and into the spawn area of the Lich King and Argus. Now these two notorious monsters share the same spawn timer, which means one of them will spawn approximately 1 to 2 hours after the last time one of them was killed. Now, the Lich King drops an earring that'll give you a 25 hit point boost, which can be helpful at this point of the game, but what we're really after is Argus. Now, Argus can drop the Peacock Amulet, which for early gameplay can be tremendously helpful in making sure that you always have the best accuracy or ranged accuracy. On my trip to Mia, I decided to go ahead and head into the maze to see if Argus happened to be up. Sure enough, he was, and what do you know, he dropped the amulet for us. This will be a great piece for us all the way until level 99. Now let's head back to the Chains of Promathia expansion, to where after the defeat of the third and final Promyvion boss, we have automatically entered Chapter 2. At the start of this chapter, we are going to find ourselves in an entirely new zone. The zone is called Luface Meadows. Now you're going to want to traverse your way through this zone and enter the Tavnasian safehold at F10. Note, there are many orcs, gigas, and buggers along the way that will attack you if you are level 45 or less, so make sure you have your trust out as you proceed along this journey, or simply mount. Upon entering the Tavnasian safehold, you will be greeted to a cutscene that will complete Mission 2-1. After that cutscene, you're going to want to head to the top floor of the safehold and head through the walnut door at K9. Here, you want to speak to the NPC Despachare, who will direct you to go to the bottom floor of the safehold and click on the sewer entrance at I-7, which is where our next zone will be. Please note that if you're having difficulty getting around the safehold, there's a very easy quest to do with Alicia at G10 that will just have you running around for a minute or two, and then it will reward you with a map of the safehold. Next, let's go back to mission 2.3 that we are currently on, which is entering the sewers, or what's known as the Famunua Aqueducts. Now here we have two primary objectives to complete this particular chapter. The first is to go into the deep recesses of the aqueducts and defeat the Minotaur. I suggest you accomplish this one first. The second objective is you need to defeat farmers in the dungeon to get yourself a bronze key, which will then be used to accomplish the second objective. Due to this, I recommend killing your way through the Aqueducts, both to get valuable experience points and to kill any farmer in your path so that you can hopefully get this bronze key that you're looking for that you will need for the second objective. For now though, let's go back to objective 1 and get that taken care of. The map on the left shows you the path you need to follow where you enter the safe hold and you want to exit where you see A. Now once we're on map 2, you can see that you can follow the A path all the way to the Minotaur at the north point part of the map. Here we are in the actual Minotaur fight. Now I want to warn you, he will detect you from over 50 feet away and draw you in, so make sure you're ready for the fight before you take that final corner that you just saw me take. Now the fight against the Minotaur is not overly challenging as long as you keep a few things in mind. 1, you want to make sure that you're about level 45 or above to make it as easy as possible at this point. If you aren't level 45 yet, consider killing farmer around the zone until you're getting to that level 45 point. Additionally, you want to make sure that you have Riverne tank for this fight. That is because there's a special move called Mortal Ray that is used during the fight that will doom you, and if that doom is not removed, you will die. Now of course you could use Holy Waters or simply turn your back to him when this ability is being readied, but that of course all adds to a more complex fight. It really is most simple when you just have him tank and then have yourself and all of the trust around him so that you can then deal his damage as efficiently as possible. Now this fight is a prime example of why it is I suggested using these trusts for chapters 1 and 2. Riverne is a fantastic tank that will keep hate on this and of course make your job much easier so that you can deal damage. Lion is able to put shadows up, which will largely negate all of the AoE abilities that the Minotaur will be using during this fight. Semi, staying at range, will also stay out of the range of those AoE abilities while still being able to get in large amounts of damage. Now I'm using Millie at this point to be my white mage, as I actually let my Yoran-Oran affinity lapse, sadly, but ideally you want Yoran-Oran here as well, as that is the best trust to try and get Doom on, if it happens to hit Riverne. Now after you beat this fight, the Minotaur actually respawns fairly quickly, so you want to make sure that you get entirely out of this area and turn the corner before deciding what it is you're going to do next. Normally by this point, you will be heading around the rest of the Aqueducts to try and take on Farmer on your way to the second objective. Speaking of those Farmer, let's go ahead and put that map back up on the left hand side of the screen. All those green areas are where the Farmer spawn. So on your way from the Minotaur to that red circle, you have at least 2 or 3 different areas that you can go to there and kill Farmer where you can hopefully get your bronze key. Now that circle shows you exactly where you'll be using that bronze key, and it's to use it to get to the gate right there so that you can proceed through that sea at the end of the map. Now if you do not get the bronze key over those farmer that you kill in that way, go ahead and proceed to the other side of the map and kill all of the green locations that you see. By the time you finish killing all of the farmer in those locations, you should be able to track back to the first one and start killing the ones that have respawned. Note this is a fantastic way to gain experience, and you will normally get up to anywhere from level 45 to 50 in this area. Note that if you do hit level 50 in this zone, you're actually going to stop getting experience, and that is because you are currently capped at level 50. We will deal with that situation as soon as we leave here. I also do want to point out that if you're on Thief, you do have the opportunity to pick the lock at this door to get past all this, but I really do advise you do not skip all of this valuable experience, as it is a great way to get 10 to 15 levels in these 2 chapters of COP. After you've finally gotten your bronze key to drop, make sure you head to the map on that red circled area you see right there. At that location, you will see a door that you can use the bronze key on that will allow you through. Now once you're through that door, you're immediately going to see some Taurus and a group of 3 farmers that will all link together, so make sure you're ready to take them all on at the same time. Once finished, go ahead and head up this ladder to map 3. Once on map 3, you'll want to take a left in that first room and head down the long hallway to go through the door into the large library. Now once in this room, you'll notice that there are a large number of farmer in here, and if you aggro them all at the same time, it may pose a bit of a challenge. Therefore I recommend pulling some out of this room in pairs to take them on until you've eliminated them all. After you do that, you'll want to go deep into this room and then take a right to go down that right side of bookshelves, so that you can click some question marks in the lowest shelf of the bookshelf that will open a door on the south wall. Please keep in mind that you do not want to go through the door that opens on the east wall, that opens with a different set of question marks in this room. If you do that, you will end up falling down a hole that will take you back to the start of the map that will now require you to get yet another bronze key. So again, make sure you exit this room on the south side. I'm showing you an example right here of the question marks you should be clicking on and the door you should be going through. Now directly on the other side of this door, you should see many oil lamps. If you click on them, they'll tell you the element they are associated with. What you now need to do is click 2 lamps in quick succession. The first being the day of the week it is, and the second being the element that is weak to. I've gone ahead and put a cheat sheet up there on the left hand side so that you knew exactly which 2 lamps to click based on which day it is for you currently. After you head to the secret door that appears, you will be treated to a cutscene that will then finish your time in objective number 2 inside of the Aqueducts. After this, you will want to exit the Aqueducts. Normally I recommend just simply using warp, and then heading back to Justinius at J6 on the top floor of the safe hold to finish mission 2-3. Now if you're progressing through the game similarly as me, then at this point you're going to want to go to your limit break quest because you will have achieved level 50 when you are in the Aqueducts. If you are not level 50 yet, you're going to want to skip this part until you are level 50. Now currently in the game, you are restricted to a maximum level of 50. Once you are level 50, you will want to head to Rulud Gardens and speak with Matt here, as it's only when you are this level will he then offer you the Limit Break quest to increase your maximum level to 55. Now this Limit Break quest is not overly challenging for a level 50 player with trust. However, it can be rather time consuming in that you'll have to go to 3 different areas around Vanadil and get a specific item to drop in each. Let's go ahead and go through the 3 different items you're going to need and the easiest way I have found to acquire them. Now the first item we will discuss that you need to obtain is the X-Ray mold. In order to easily obtain this one, I suggest you use Unity Warp to get to Rolandberry Fields. Now this will put you right outside of Crawler's Nest. Go ahead and turn around right here and head right into Crawler's Nest. Go right past the first room of Scorpions into the second room of X-Rays that you see here. Now I normally will get the drop on my first kill, but all 3 of these X-Rays, one of them should end up dropping it for you. This is a good time to also point out that this entire time for COP when we've been waiting to have the bronze key drop, and right now when we're trying to get all these items to drop, I am subbing the Thief job. Now I'm doing that because of the Treasure Hunter trait. As long as you have a level 15 Thief or higher, then you will automatically have access to that Treasure Hunter trait, even if it is a sub job. And what this will do is make the items that we need to drop much more frequently. So make sure that you use this tactic in these instances where you're really trying to get something to drop on a short timetable. Now as soon as you get that mold to drop, you want to go ahead and warp home and not waste any other time, as more than likely you're already experience capped at this point. So you're not going to be able to gain any more experience until you finish this Limit Break quest. Let's move on to our second item in the Limit Break quest, the Ancient Papyrus, which can be obtained off of liches inside of the Eldamine Necropolis. Now there are 2 ways for you to get to this entrance. One, simply exit Upper Juno, and then hop on your mount and run the short distance right here to J10 where you can enter under this hill. You can also simply use Unity Warp to Batilia Downs, and once again, head to J10 right here, which is a short distance away, and enter at this same point. Once inside of the Necropolis, you just want to head for the 4 intersection points that you see designated with the blue squares on the map to the left. There you will find liches that you can kill for a quick drop of your papyrus that you need. Once again, the Thief sub-job will drastically help your chances with getting this. I once again got it on my first kill. After you finish this, you want to immediately get back to the home point once again so that you can get your 3rd and final item. This brings us to the 3rd and final item, and sadly the most challenging to get to, which is the bomb coal, which you can acquire off explosures from the Garlage Citadel. Now, the main reason this is such a pain is there's no easy way here. The Unity Warp that would get us to the outside zone, like in the previous 2 items that we acquired, puts us far from the entrance to the Citadel. So much so that it's actually easier to just go from the Port Juno, use your mount, and then go right to the Citadel directly. Another option is to use Unity Warp directly into the Citadel, and then climb up 1 floor all the way back to the entrance. However you get to the entrance of the Citadel, what your next step needs to be is to go shortly south of the entrance into these small rooms that you see here. Now one of these rooms will have some question marks in the ground, just like you see right here on a stone. You want to click on those and it'll give you the option to pick up a pouch of weighted stones. This will allow you to easily get through the heavy doors that you're about to encounter in the Citadel. To get through those weighted doors, simply click on the large door to use your stones and get through it. Now on your way to those explosures, you could encounter another NM that could drop a very useful item to Ninja and many other jobs in the early game. Make sure you keep your eyes out for Old Two Wings, who is just beyond that first gate door, who has a possibility of dropping an evasion +5 cape that would be very useful to Ninja and many other jobs. Now beyond Old Two Wings, you're trying to get to the 2 rooms that you see here shown with the gray circles in your map. In those rooms will be the explosures that once again should have a very high drop rate, especially with the thief sub-job. For the 3rd time in a row, I ended up getting the drop on the first kill. After you have all 3 items, you now want to head back to Matt in Rulud Gardens to unlock the ability to obtain level 55. Once you've done this, go ahead and get back to your COP expansion, because we still have a 3rd whole new zone to explore before we get to the end of Chapter 2. Now that we're unlocked to level 55 and can get some experience, let's get back to Chains of Promathia, head back to the safe hold, and head to the top floor at K7. If you click on that walnut door again, you're going to go through a cutscene where you then receive a mysterious amulet. Now after you receive this, head to the dilapidated gate at I-11 in Miseris Coast. Now this is a new zone that you can use if you exit to the opposite direction of Blueface Meadows as you exit the safe hold. Now after you click on that dilapidated gate, you want to return to the safe hold and approach the bridge right there in the middle of the zone, where another cutscene will ensue, after which you will be ready to head back to the dilapidated gate and enter a new zone, Riverne Site A01. Now here, you are going to go through a series of spatial displacements that will take you between a number of islands, trying to get to your eventual goal of entering the zone of Monarch Glen, where the final battle of Chapter 2 takes place. As with the previous 2 zones in the Chains of Promathia expansion, you want to make sure that you go ahead and take advantage of the valuable experience you can get in this zone. Additionally, as you're going from island to island, you want to make sure to take advantage of any of the fire drake kills that you see. They are going to drop scales that you need at least 2 of in order to actually get all the way to Monarch Glen, so it's good to start farming them as early as possible. Once again, the thief sub-job will assist you in doing this. Now in regards to the path you want to follow, once you enter from the Miseris Coast on the right hand side of the map there, you want to use the displacement to cross this path right here. Then you want to stay on this large, long island all the way until you get to this final red dot here, where you will use your first scale to open the displacement and have a short period of time to travel across to the next island. Once you're on that next island, you now want to travel along the outer part of the ring in a counterclockwise fashion until you get to the next red dot. This red dot you will need to trade your second scale to, so that you can then get to the second to final island before Monarch Glen. Once you're on that island, simply follow the right hand wall and use the first portal you'll see to get to the Monarch Glen island. Now upon entering Monarch Glen, you will be able to finally enter the battlefield for the final battle of Chapter 2. Now here, you'll be going up against 3 mammoths. Now, the exact conditions of this fight will change based on many factors, so let's go ahead and go into what you could possibly see. Now these 3 mammoths can be in one of 4 phases. However, they will all start in the first phase being hand-to-hand form. Now the main thing you have to watch out for in these 4 phases is the ability of transmogrification. After this ability is used, that particular mammoth will absorb all damage done to them for approximately 30 seconds. So you want to make sure that you quickly switch to one of the other mammoths once one of them that you're fighting uses this, or if it's the only mammoth left, you just have to basically turn your back to it for 30 seconds and wait for this ability to wear off. Now during the fight, these mammoths can change into 3 other forms that can also do solid amounts of damage. The first one is a sword form, which is a warrior type mob that will do lots of weapon skills. The second is a staff form. This is a black mage type mob that will cost lots of spells and AoE type magic. This is one of the more dangerous abilities to be in, especially if multiple mammoths are in this form. The final form it can be is the polearm form, which is a dragoon type but that has very slow attack speed, so if at all possible, this is the form you would prefer them to be in. Now, if you were taking this on at the old level cap that it was originally created for, this was actually a fairly challenging fight, but these days, you should be at least level 50 by this point, making this a rather trivial fight as long as you pay attention to the transmogrification abilities. Now, just like with all the previous fights in chapters 1 and 2, trust selection is rather important in this one. Valenril is fantastic at starting off the fight with a big AoE ability, making sure that he gets hate on all of the mobs. Lion is great at living through all of these AoE attacks that you're seeing go off right now, and then of course Semi, as usual, staying out of the way but still doing great damage. Now, by this point we have Yoran back, thankfully, so we have solid curing going on, which is what makes this fight rather trivial. Be sure to use melee if you don't have Yoran available to you. Now this fight is going to bring us to the conclusion of episode 10 in the journey of CyberLogic. Now at this point, we've gotten up to level 55 on our main character. In the next episode in the series, we will go back to our Sandoria missions and complete rank 4, doing the next limit break quest, making our maximum level 60, and then we'll finish it up with doing Chains of Promathia Chapter 3. That's going to be it for episode 10 of the Journey of CyberLogic. I hope you're enjoying this and finding it helpful. I'm definitely enjoying the playthrough that I'm doing for the first time in nearly 20 years. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.